A new device might make whole eye transplants actually work, and the reason that matters is because right now they basically don't. We can transplant hearts, lungs, kidneys, even faces, but a whole human eye has always been one of the hardest things medicine has tried to move from one body to another, not just because the surgery is incredibly delicate, but because of what happens to the eye the moment it leaves the body. It starts dying almost immediately. And once a surgeon does place it, there's another wall to climb. The optic nerve has to reconnect, and so far that hasn't led to restored vision. A few years ago, a surgical team actually attempted a whole eye transplant. It was a landmark procedure. The eye survived, the blood supply worked, but the patient couldn't see through it. The optic nerve didn't fire the way it needs to, so the eye was technically alive but functionally silent. That gap between keeping an eye alive and making it actually see is what researchers are now trying to close. Here's where the preservation problem starts. When any organ loses its blood supply, cells begin running out of oxygen and nutrients almost instantly. For the heart or kidneys, surgeons have cold storage solutions that can buy several hours. For the eye, it's more complicated. The retina is one of the most metabolically active tissues in the entire body. It burns through energy fast. And it's extremely sensitive to even brief interruptions in that supply. Cold slows things down, but it doesn't stop the damage. After just a few hours, the retinal cells start breaking down in ways that matter. The device at the center of this story is designed to fight that deterioration in a much more active way. Instead of just chilling the eye and hoping for the best, it essentially keeps the eye perfused. That means it pumps a specially formulated fluid through the eye's own blood vessels, delivering oxygen and nutrients the same way living circulation would. The eye isn't just sitting in a box getting cold. It's being actively maintained, almost like it's still connected to something alive. This kind of approach is called machine perfusion, and it's not brand new in organ preservation. Surgeons have used versions of it for livers and kidneys, but adapting it for an eye is a different challenge. The eye is smaller, more fragile, and the vascular architecture is intricate. Getting the pressure right matters a lot. Too much flow and you damage the delicate structures inside. Too little and you're not doing enough to preserve them. The researchers behind this device spent time calibrating exactly how much perfusion the eye needs, what the fluid should contain, and how to deliver it without causing harm. The goal isn't just to keep the tissue alive longer. It's to keep it alive in a state where it's still viable for transplant. There's a difference between cells that are technically not dead and cells that are still capable of functioning after a surgery. That's the window they're trying to protect. There's also a longer-term problem this could help with. Right now, the supply of usable donor eyes is limited partly by timing. Eyes have to be retrieved quickly after death, and they can only be used within a narrow window. A reliable perfusion device that extends that window could open up more donations that would otherwise be lost. More viable eyes in the system means more chances for surgeons to attempt these procedures and learn from them. On the surgical side, the optic nerve challenge is real, and it's separate from preservation. Nerves are notoriously hard to regenerate in adults. The central nervous system, which includes the optic nerve, doesn't regrow the way peripheral nerves sometimes can. This is why the first whole eye transplant produced a living eye that couldn't see. Researchers are exploring ways to encourage nerve fiber regrowth, using growth factors and other biological signals to try to coax the connection back. It's early, but having a well-preserved eye to work with is the prerequisite for any of that to have a chance. Think of it this way. If the eye arrives at the surgical table already compromised from hours of deterioration, even a perfect nerve reconnection strategy doesn't have much to work with. The preservation device is trying to make sure the eye shows up in the best possible shape. What happens after that is a separate fight. It's also worth thinking about who this could eventually help. Whole eye transplantation isn't something surgeons would pursue for minor vision problems. This kind of procedure would be aimed at people who have lost an eye entirely, from trauma, disease, or conditions where the eye itself is damaged beyond repair. For those patients, prosthetic eyes exist, but they don't restore sight. A functional transplanted eye, if that ever becomes reliable, would be in a completely different category. We're not there yet. The device is still being refined and tested. The nerve reconnection problem hasn't been solved. These are research stage developments, not something heading to a clinic next year. But the fact that teams are now tackling both sides of the problem, preservation and nerve regeneration, at the same time is meaningful progress. The eye has always been treated as something too delicate, too connected, too precisely wired to move from one person to another. This research is starting to chip away at why that's been true, not by ignoring the biology, but by building tools that work with it.